Well, here's something that no one's really talking about. Inflation is making renters poorer, and not just because your rent keeps going up. Every month, more of your paycheck is being transferred into housing costs, leaving you with less money to save, invest, or even become an owner of a property. So as a renter, you're paying the rising cost of the asset without actually owning the asset. You're paying for property taxes. You're paying for insurance increases. You're paying for higher financing costs. You're paying for the rising replacement cost of the building. But at the end of the month, you do not own the building. You don't benefit from equity or appreciation. You simply have to come up with more money to remain in the same place with little to no upgrades. So today, let's get brutally honest here about why inflation is making renters poorer, why this problem continues even when inflation supposedly cools down a little bit, and what renters can actually do to stop falling further behind. Now, when most people hear the word inflation, they think about groceries, gas, or the price of a cup of coffee. And yes, all of those things matter, of course, but rent is drastically different because it's usually the largest recurring expense in any household budget. You can shop around, you can cut coupons, whatever that is. You can buy cheaper groceries. You can drive your car less often to cut gas costs, all of that, right? You can cancel subscriptions. Like, I'm done with Netflix now. You can stop buying your latte at Starbucks. But of course, in most cases, you can't reduce housing costs without making some major life changes or sacrifices. We need somewhere to live. That's why housing inflation has a different kind of power. It doesn't just make life more expensive, it reduces your options. According to Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies, they looked at 22.7 million rental households were cost burdened in 2024. What that means in non-Harvard speak is that they spent more than 30% of their income on housing. They represented roughly 49% of all renters. And 12.1 million renter households were severely cost burdened, spending more than half of their income on housing. This is a clear economic problem that can't be solved by budgeting alone. Once housing starts to eat up too much of your income, everything else gets squeezed, right? It becomes much harder to build an emergency fund, contribute to your retirement account, or pay off credit card debt, and build any kind of solid down payment for buying a house of your own. It all gets harder and harder. And the money that could have been used to purchase an asset is instead used to maintain access to an asset owned by somebody else. And that is the hidden cost of rent inflation. Now, here's where the language around inflation becomes incredibly misleading. When you hear headlines celebrating that inflation is coming down, it doesn't mean prices are actually coming back to a baseline. It simply means prices are rising more slowly. So if your rent went from $1,500 to $1,700 and then rent inflation slowed down, your rent didn't go back down to $1,500, right? You're still paying $1,700. The increase has already been built into your monthly budget. So inflation compounds the cost of living. It does not reset the cost of living every time the inflation rate declines. Like, in some ways, think of it like a Big Mac. Like, think about the 1980s prices for a Big Mac or a Happy Meal or something like that. Do you think because inflation has gone down a little bit that McDonald's or any of these other places have like lowered their prices back down to where they were? Of course not. It's like $12 now. It's crazy. In June, overall consumer prices were still 3.5% higher than a year earlier. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, consumer prices were up 3.5% over the year ending in June 2026. But for renters, the more important issue is the accumulated price level, not just what happened in the last 30 days. So your landlord does not send you an itemized bill with an inflation charge. Instead, it just shows up as an increased rent renewal. Want to stay here? Now an extra $200. It shows up through application fees, pet fees, administrative fees, and other charges that can slowly and steadily increase the cost of staying housed. Once that higher cost is locked into your budget, it becomes very difficult to recover that. Now, we'll get to our next story here in a minute, but I want to share something with you before I do that. You've all heard us report the dollar is losing value every day. Our national debt is out of control, and you can bet no one in Washington or Wall Street is worrying about your finances or how you'll be able to afford retirement. That's why you and only you need to become financially independent. It's the only way to break free from the system. Now, if you're wondering how, here's a method that's been proven time and time again. Real estate has created more millionaires than any other investment type in history. And it's exactly how Natalie and I broke free as well. We're able to do this because we aren't dependent on a boss, the stock market, or whatever nonsense Washington triggers. And you can do the very same thing. Now, your path will probably look different from ours, and figuring out your next steps can be tricky, especially if you're just getting started. So we built a 60-second quiz that shows you exactly where you stand as an investor and gives you simple, clear next steps for moving forward. So stop wishing that you had a portfolio full of performing assets. Take action. Start building one right now, today. You can take the quiz while you're listening to this episode, okay? All you need to do is go to redacted.inc/quiz, and the link is right there on your screen. Again, redacted.inc/quiz. So let's go through a simple example. Imagine your rent increases by $300 per month. Now, that may not sound catastrophic to everyone, but $300 per month is $3,600 per year. And over the years, that's $18,000. That's assuming the rent never increases again. That $18,000 could have gone towards an emergency fund or paid down high interest debt, could have been invested, could have been used to fund a down payment, could have also created the flexibility to leave a bad job, move to a better housing market, or maybe start the business that you've always wanted to start. But instead, it only maintained your housing situation. You didn't necessarily get a larger apartment, a better neighborhood, or a shorter commute. You just paid more to remain where you already were. So that's why understanding the opportunity cost of financial decisions is so important, because every dollar that goes towards higher housing costs is a dollar that cannot simultaneously go towards building your financial independence. Now, to be fair, not every landlord who raises rent is out there trying to take advantage of tenants. Property taxes rise, insurance premiums go up, labor costs increase. Landlords, too, are facing rising costs. They naturally respond to those costs by trying to protect their cash flow. And that often equates to raising rents. At the end of the day, it's a business. But here's the important point. Even when the landlord is facing legitimate cost increases, the renter is still the person who absorbs the loss of purchasing power. And the renter does not receive the ownership benefit on the other side of it. The renter is exposed to the rising cost of housing without building equity in the housing. The owner, may face higher expenses, but the owner still owns the asset. Some people try to make the moral issue here, but it's simply how the balance sheet works out. And this is where inflation is widening the gap between renters and owners. If you own a home or an investment property, rising construction costs can increase the replacement value of that asset. So if wages don't keep up with housing costs, the person who owns the asset may become wealthier, while the person trying to enter the market becomes poorer relative, to that price of entry. So this is the value of ownership, exposure to an asset. Renting gives you access to the asset, but not the ownership of it. And that distinction matters more, of course, every time prices rise, right? So the owner benefits from appreciation, income, or equity paydown. The renter receives shelter. It's valuable in its own right, of course, but with no asset on the balance sheet. This is the ownership gap. Now, before anyone gets really offended by this, I'm just telling you the facts here, I will say that I've always maintained that the decision of buying versus owning is very personal. I've had chapters of my life when I've rented. My whole family, we rented an apartment. Multiple apartments where we lived. Houses. I rented a house. And I've also become a homeowner as well. And in fact, many successful people I know rent the home they live in. And this is a brilliant strategy. Renting the home they live in while they own other assets that support their lifestyle. There are no morals to this. There's just one simple fact. Owning an asset, whether it's your primary residence or not, allows you protection from inflation that you cannot get from just renting alone. And this is how the rent trap develops. Rent increases, so the renter then has less money to save for a down payment. And because the down payment is delayed, then the renter stays in the rental market longer. Because the renter stays longer, more money goes towards rent. Then home prices, insurance, taxes, and financing costs rise again. And now the original down payment target is even further away. This is the trap, the circle. So the renter isn't being irresponsible. In fact, they're likely working full-time, earning more money than they did a few years ago. But if housing costs rise faster than their ability to save, then their financial position can't keep up with it. The Federal Reserve recently reported that 21% of renters in 2025 had been behind on rent at some point during the previous year. Think about that. A household can be employed, earning steady income, still not have enough margin to handle even one unexpected expense. Mostly it comes in the form of healthcare, let's be honest. Didn't expect that. So they have to pay, now I have to go behind on my rent. This is not financial freedom. It's serious fragility. And once a household is financially fragile, inflation becomes even more dangerous because there is no cushion left. When housing consumes more of your income, you have less capital available to build wealth. So what can renters actually do? Well, let's get practical. Step one, measure the damage. Don't look at only your rent. Add up all of your utilities, your parking, renter's insurance, fees, commuting costs, required services, all of that. And all of your subscriptions and everything else you're paying for, Netflix, etc., right? Then compare your total housing costs with your take-home pay. You need to know whether your housing situation is just expensive or whether it's preventing you from building any financial traction. So make sure you understand the housing chunk of all of your expenses. Like, what does that look like? You can't solve a problem that you've not measured. The second step is to protect your monthly cash flow. So compare the cost of moving against the cost of staying. Consider roommates or a different location, and the trade-off makes economic sense. And build in an emergency reserve before making aggressive investments, because if every unexpected bill goes into a credit card, you're not building wealth. You're just borrowing against your future. The third step is to create a realistic plan towards ownership. That doesn't mean rushing into a bad home purchase. And it doesn't mean buying an overpriced rental property because somebody online promised passive income. It means recognizing the fundamental difference between consuming an asset and owning an asset. Now, for some people, that path may eventually involve a primary residence. For others, it may involve a carefully analyzed rental property, a real estate partnership, or maybe even some other cash flowing asset. The point is, move from having all of your money flow outward towards assets owned by other people to gradually owning assets yourself. Now, wealth is built through ownership of cash flowing assets, not by endlessly paying rising costs and hoping that wages catch up. Inflation makes you poor when rising costs consume the money that could have been built for your future. So for renters, the damage can be especially severe because housing is essential. Rent is recurring. And the payment usually does not create ownership unless you have some sort of a rent-to-own situation going on. And the real cost of inflation is not just how much your rent has risen, but also takes into consideration what you're unable to build when your rent keeps rising. It's all about the opportunity cost. So this is not just about an apartment lease. It's about whether you're allowed to build wealth, or whether every increase in the cost of living keeps pushing that further and further away. So if you're serious about taking action on this, come over to my brand new YouTube channel and watch this next video in the series. It's called How Real Estate Can Create Monthly Passive Income. It's not for everybody, but if you're interested in the specifics of buying assets and creating monthly cash flow and expanding your lifestyle instead of shrinking your budget, then come over to this next video. We'll have it linked up there. And we'll also have it in the description below, and we'll see you next time.